everyone, and welcome to another episode of Perspectives. I'm Reverend Brittany, and I am here with a special guest, Leo Djamson, one of our congregants, who's going to talk with us a bit about Ghana and our Sankofa Pilgrimage. Our scripture for today comes from Micah chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. What shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with 1,000s of rams and 10,000s rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, and the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require, but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. This scripture kind of leads us into what we're talking about today as we talk about the Sankofa Pilgrimage. The Sankofa Pilgrimage for me, and I think for the leadership of this church, really is about this justice work, this work of loving kindness as we walk humbly with God. So Sankofa is a West African Adinkra symbol, as you know, Leo.
Yes.
Very well. And one of the translations for it is that it means it is not foolish to go back and get that which you have forgotten. And so the Sankofa Pilgrimage is an opportunity for us that we've done so far to uncover some of the history in America, across our country, some of the things that we have known, some of the things that we haven't known, and we unpack that work together. We have gone on 3 pilgrimages thus far. We've gone to the South. We've headed to the Northeast. This past year, we did a Midwest migration to Chicago. Next year, we're going in 2026. We'll be talking about things happening in California, both Southern and Northern, and a little bit of Central. And then in 2027, we're going to be heading to Ghana.
Yes.
So, Leo, I have some questions for you. Leo, you are from Ghana.
That is correct.
You're from
yes.
Ghana. So can you
Yes.
tell us where you grew up in Ghana and what's a favorite childhood memory you have about your community?
I grew up in the airport residential area, suburb in eastern Accra, the capital, and childhood memory very similar to young kids growing up here. I mean, I ride my bicycle in the neighborhood, exchange videos, back in those days, VHS videos with the neighbors, and walk my dogs and all that. So, there was similarity, like any kid growing up. But then it's also enshrined in what was going on in Ghana at the time, politically, change of governments, military rule, all of that, it becomes part of that as well.
Yeah.
That journey, which for a young kid in those days, I was 10 years old when I moved to Ghana from the Netherlands. And I lived in Ghana until I was 15 before going to the UK. And then, I've always, made trips to Ghana, especially when I lived in the UK. It was 2-3 times a year. But growing up, childhood memories similar to here, but it's you have it was affected by politics as well, just because of the history of the country.
Can you give us just like a little history lesson? Because I know that Ghana hasn't always been called Ghana.
Ghana was the Gold Coast for 100 years. It was a British colony. Initially, the first interaction with the British and all the Europeans was with the Portuguese 600-700 years ago, back in the late 1400s. Initially, the coast was governed by the Portuguese, the Dutch, the Danes, and then colonized by the British. In the late 50s, 1957 to be precise, we gained our independence, and it became Ghana. It was named Ghana because a large percentage of the people that live in modern-day Ghana migrated from the desert area from the ancient Ghanaian Empire, which existed in the 1300s. And they migrated to present-day Ghana, and that's why the name Ghana was adopted. Because a large percentage of the population came from ancient Ghana, which is totally is it's in present-day Mali, in the middle of the Sahel. Yeah.
Wow, Mali
Interesting.
is where Mansa Musa, wasn't
That
he
is correct. Because
the
you have ancient Ghana and you have the Songhai Empire, you have the Mali Empire. They all, it started off, I'm not quite sure, I believe it was the Songhai, then the ancient Ghana Empire. And these are the people that became part of the Mali Empire.
Yeah.
And then found themselves migrating down to the coast. The story is that, when they had the spread of Islam from the north, the people in ancient Ghana believed in deities,
Okay.
and with the spread of Islam, they moved down south. Actually, they fled
Oh, okay.
from the invaders,
Okay.
and they were chased into the forest areas, which is present-day Ghana. And of course, the Islamic raiders in those days were on horseback, and their horses couldn't get into the tropical rainforest, the jungles. So a large percentage of them moved back to this area in order to continue their practice,
Wow.
So that is one of the schools of thought,
Yeah. It's very interesting because, we have countries today.
Correct.
But before, colonialism and all of that kind of thing happened, folks really were tribal, right? And lived in communities and had,
That is correct,
Yeah.
yes. People were tribal, and a lot of the tribes do transcend borders. Modern day, the modern day borders were, as a result of colonialism. But prior to that, you have many tribes that, transcend all the various borders. So you could have the same tribe in Ghana, and then next door in the Ivory Coast, you got basically people from the same bloodline.
Right.
And then, and they speak the same language. And then, so that's how West Africa is basically has existed.
And so I know that Adinkras, I've learned that they are mostly Ghanaian, but it's a West African Adinkra, right?
That is the Adinkra signs are from Ghana.
Okay.
They are from the Akan tribe of Ghana, and it's just an ancient way of calligraphy, and these signs, were used in the old days to communicate certain symbols. But it's basically the heartland of the Akan kingdom is in Ghana.
Okay.
And then it spread through to the Ivory Coast and some other areas, but mainly Ghana and the Ivory Coast. But the as you know, of the golden stool, which hopefully, if we're able to,
I know, but can you tell our folks who are watching the golden stool?
the golden stool supposedly was commanded from the skies, and by Okomfonochi, who was the spiritual advisor to the Ashanti king at the time. And it does exist today as a golden stool. It's a little stool made of solid gold, and that is what holds the Ashanti kingdom together.
Oh, okay.
Because the particular tribe, the Ashanti tribe, the name comes from war. So they conquered other tribes, and then they formed that. And then the Asante Hene, the king, was given this golden stool, which was commanded from the heavens, apparently. And that's what symbolizes the Ashanti kingdom, which is a large percentage of it's the largest tribe in Ghana, and it's part of the Akan people, who are about 47% of the country.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So you in Ghana, aside from English, there are many other languages. Myself, I'm from the Ewe tradition from Eastern Ghana, but Akan is almost a national language as well.
Okay.
And there are many other languages. You have Accra area is the Ga language is spoken. Where I am from, the Ebe language is spoken. You got the northern languages, Hausa in the north. There are about 13 tribal languages in Ghana that are all different.
Is Twi in Ghana?
That is Twi. The Twi language is an Akan language.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm learning so much.
And there are different aspects of the Twi language.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, I'm just having such a nerdy good time.
So it's easier just to speak English.
Yeah. Well, I've seen recently that Ghana has decided that English will not be the primary language of education or something. I'm not really sure.
Well, we're encouraged in school, even when I was in school in Ghana all those years ago, we're encouraged to learn a vernacular language.
Okay.
But English is a language of business.
Okay.
And I don't think that is ever going to change because that's how we transact business all over the world.
Yeah, it makes sense with
that's
it being
only,
colonized by England.
By the UK. And, you've got other... It's funny how West Africa has, funny enough, based on the languages or the language of the colonizers, it's kind of gravitated to, you got Anglophone West Africa, you got Francophone West, which is, over the years, developed different cultures.
Yeah.
Influences by, the British influence or the British influences, the system of government or, the Francophone countries have a huge French influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, Leo.
Yeah.
I love this. Okay. So tell me, when you hear the word Ghana, or when I first came to you and said Ghana, like, what do you love most about your country? What comes to your heart?
Funny enough, what comes to my is the smells. Smells of Ghana, smells the cuisine, the people, the noises, is all part of Ghana.
Yeah.
It's just this big umbrella of, this group of people that kind of gravitate towards each other, and they have something in common. It's like we're noisy people. We love good food. We're very our festivals are important. There's, and that's wherever you go in Ghana. Is the first thing that hits you is the smell of food and the smell of it's the smell of culture.
What kind of food? Tell me, like, your favorite Ghanaian dish.
Oh, it's a hard thing. That's a very difficult one to actually describe my favorite Ghanaian dish. It's so difficult. There's so much good Ghanaian food.
I love fish. Is fish?
We've got that along the coast.
Okay.
All kinds of fish.
Okay.
And favorite Ghanaian dish is hopefully when we get to go on the trip, we'll all, make that decision. Or each person could, because there's so much. It's a small country, but the variety is amazing.
I love that.
Yeah, there's so much variety in such a small place.
I love it.
And that is also because of, it's right there on the 0-0. It's all the influence from different parts of the world. You got as I was mentioning earlier on, the Northern Raiders. You got the spice routes that went through Ghana. You got the Portuguese influence. You got the Dutch, the British, and then you got all different ethnicities that have come together, in that area and live in that area, but brought things from further east, from Western Sudan, where a lot of Ghanaians came from, and some where I'm from, we supposedly came from the Promised Land. We're one of the 12 tribes.
Oh, yeah.
Supposedly. How that is, I'm not a genealogist, but it'll take a lot of hard work with the historians and, to be able, so you got that as well.
Yeah.
So there's just it's a melting pot. And you got Ghanaians that came to settle along the coast from Brazil.
Oh,
After the slave trade. So people came back from Brazil. So you got Brazil, Accra, even in the city of Accra alone. And then you've got all the Middle Eastern merchants that have been in Ghana for the last 150 years, from the Mediterranean, Lebanese, Syrians, Armenians. I mean, they've all merged. So you look at the Ghanaian population, you look at people, and they may all look similar or all the same, but they've all got that different culture just flowing through each and every one of us. And then, I mean, by being together, we influence each other as well. So everyone's kind of, I mean, most Ghanaians do speak more than one language. They might speak English and might speak two other vernacular languages easily, just automatically, just by virtue of just living there.
Wow.
That comes, and you can imagine, when it comes to different culture, I mean, you're there taking in cultures from different parts of the country. That may not necessarily be from your own community, but it's just by being there,
I love
Interesting
it.
place, very diverse.
You're getting me more
So
excited
small,
to
but
get there.
very diverse, yes.
I can't wait. I have a tattoo that's in Adinkra that means unity and diversity.
I see, yes.
You see that?
Yes, I know that.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that.
I don't know how to pronounce it in Ghanaian or in...
No, I have to rack my... because there's so many of them.
It's all right?
I have the most common one, which is the Jinyami.
Yes,
meaning
I've seen that.
God is the omnipotent.
I love that.
That's the meaning behind that.
Wow.
Yes.
So can you tell me just a bit about your faith growing up in Ghana?
My faith is greatly influenced by, obviously, my parents. My dad a Methodist, my mom a Presbyterian. However, they didn't necessarily push it down our throats. I went to a Methodist school, a school that was Anglican, Methodist, and Presbyterian. That's a rich church school, as at the elementary level. Of course, we went to, every Wednesday we had service, and on Sunday my family worshipped at that church. But my parents didn't force it down us. I mean, it's something that we grew to love ourselves as children. And then because we spent a large part of our growing up outside Ghana and in the Netherlands, it was not necessarily going to our Methodist church. And we didn't go to church as much when we were outside Ghana. Ghana is on Sunday, it's the whole country is at church.
Okay.
The whole Christian country is at church. I mean, of course, it's about 30% or 20-something percent Muslims as well in Ghana. There are people who believe in all kind of traditional beliefs as well. So it's a very secular country.
Okay.
Naturally secular, not even by way of the constitution or the law, but it's just people just do what they do, and everybody accepts people for who they are.
And that's what I was going to ask. So
Yes.
are there any tensions between the religious groups?
No, not really. That's one place that there isn't.
Okay.
Considering there are other parts of West Africa where it's just, religions, people are, I mean, all these so-called modern-day crusaders are just fighting each other for, But in Ghana, for some reason, we've always cohabitated. I mean, I would go... I remember my parents had Muslim friends, and during Ramadan, we would go, share a meal with them.
Yeah.
And they would come over at any time we had something going on in our house at Easter.
Yeah.
They'd come to our house, and my parents would have meals, and, it's very accepting. And then, of course, there's the traditional belief that people do have traditional beliefs, but the traditional beliefs originally influenced culture.
Okay.
So we do things like our festivals that are, at the beginning of the raining season or at the end of there'll be the yam festival, there's this first corn. These go back to times when there was not really a Christian influence.
Okay.
But it's tradition that at the first planting of the corn, we have a festival in Accra.
Yeah.
And where I'm from, they have the yam festival, the harvesting of the yam. And it always just coincides with, at the end of the day, with the harvest time. And, so that's adopted by Christians and adopted by Muslims and adopted by, because we do all those same things, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's kind of like here when we celebrate, whether it's like the 4th of July or like
Correct.
Thanksgiving or whatever.
Yes.
It's kind of like these, no matter what your religious belief is,
Yes.
more often than not, you participate in these.
Yes, because it's what everybody does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a question about community. You know, in America, we're very individualistic, right? And this idea of kind of working, keep your head to the plow, you got to worry about yourself. Like,
Correct.
Is that a different understanding in Ghana? How is
It's-
community defined
Community is very community, as in, if you're, I remember as a kid, I would get dropped off to school. And we were blessed enough for my parents to have, somebody who worked in the house, a driver who would drop me off to school. But sometimes when, of course, you didn't come to work or there was an issue, and either of my parents were not available, it was just automatic that I just walked over to the neighbor's house without even asking that, and they would bring me back. So and then community is also very, nowadays, even when I've been to Ghana recently, a coworker loses a parent or loses a member of their family.
Yeah.
Everybody goes to the funeral.
Wow.
It's everybody that can in the company.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so such and such has lost his uncle, and it's a very community-oriented country, definitely. That's just the way life is over there. And what brings us together is all these various festivals that come from different parts of the country. If it's the Yam Festival and I go to work, I'll tell my coworkers, hey, my people are having something. And we'll all, drive all the way up to where I'm from and share. Or if it's, a relative that has passed on, it'll be donations from it's not only donations from, there'll be a pool, they'll come together. What's more important is not the donation aspect, but the fact of their presence.
Yeah.
They'll be there for me, So that's definitely very different when it comes to community.
That's amazing.
Or the aspect, when you think about community in Ghana, it's a very community-oriented country. It's all about that extended family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
We live in a big village,
Yeah.
and we all come together.
We need that, I think. People need
Well, people need people. Nowadays, people need the internet, and people need
no. Both
know?
and.
Yeah.
Both and. Okay, I just have a couple more questions.
Uh-huh.
So I've been told that there's a difference in American time versus African Caribbean time. So can you give us a little understanding on what the difference in our understanding of time looks like?
When it comes to people getting to work on time, because they have to go to work, they're there on time.
Yes.
But, outside the work environment, if I say I'm going to be here at 12 o'clock for lunch, and if I show up at 1, it's not that bad, So
My type of people.
Yeah, that's not bad. I don't think it's too bad. You don't have to push yourself when you're outside a structured environment. Once the structure, you get to school on time, you go to work on time, all that on time. We're at home. We can take our time.
Your relaxing time is relaxing time.
Exactly.
I like
so that's where that comes into,
So our pilgrims, as we prepare to sojourn, we just need to take our sense of needing to be there at this time. Just calm down.
Calm down.
Calm down.
Yes, because you're not going to work.
Okay.
You're going to work and experience the place.
Yeah.
And just just enjoy the time.
Yeah, the time.
Yes.
I love that. Okay, so my next question is, I know that there are some inaccurate ideas about West Africa, Africa as a continent in general. Yes. What is one misconception that you would like us to stop about Ghana or Africa or Ghanaian culture?
Misunderstanding is that a lot of people think Africa is one country. Obviously, people know that it's not one country, but
that Africa is not monolith.
It's not monolithic at all. It's very regional, and people might look all the same. Even the languages. When you look at all the language trees that you have in Africa, there's the Bantu side of Africa. There's the Koshites. There's the Arabian. There's this. It's all that mixture, and especially in West Africa because of the trade, because of all the trading and different. I mean, you got the Bantu migration. We started from West Africa and went all down south. That's just one migration. But in West Africa, you didn't have that migration from other places. You had different people migrating. So it's a real, and it's such a diverse place. And it's even West Africa, even Ghana in a country itself. We speak so many different languages. So that's where sometimes, if you haven't been there, you can't blame people for thinking that it's all one people. But when you do go there and you go see it yourself, you'll see it's so diverse. Even within the country, such a small country, you got coastal Ghana, you got coastal West Africa, you got the middle belt, which is the rainforest area. People eat different kinds of foods. People, if you look carefully, people kind of look different. And then you got people in the north, in the Sahel, in the desert area. It's totally different culture.
Yeah.
So all these cultures come, to meet in one small place.
It sounds so beautiful.
Yeah, America is big. There's 50 states. So you can understand why it's diverse.
Yeah.
Because it's so big. But we're talking about a small area, but so diverse as well, which is like, how is that possible? How do you speak, 13 different languages in a country that's only 92,000 square miles?
Wow.
It's interesting.
It is interesting.
We don't speak 13 languages in America.
We do not. But when you go to different areas of the country, different regions, different accents, people eat different food. Like, I lived in the Midwest, and I was like, I don't know what a pork tenderloin is, and I don't ever want to see it again on my plate, right? It wasn't for me. You know what I mean? No shade to anybody else who loves it, but not for me, right? Coming from a different region. So
correct.
That makes a lot of sense, that it's not monolith. Like, none of us are. Yeah. Okay, my last question is a little bit more weighty. Ghana holds a very deep and painful history related to the transatlantic slave trade.
Yes.
And so how do you see Ghana honoring that history while still living out such a strong resilience of joy and hope and faith in the world?
It's when you think about the transatlantic slave trade, and recently, I've been to the slave dungeons recently. As a child, it didn't really... I didn't really take it in, but in more recent years, and if you also study it, studying it is sometimes it's through oral history, and you see people in certain areas and how they've been influenced. Then you understand the impact of of that period had on Ghana as a country. It's when you go to, I always jokingly tell some of my friends here that some of the slave forts, you look at the structures, they're in better condition than my own apartment here because they were so well built.
Yeah.
And at the time when they were built, the mindset was that they were built to last forever.
My God.
So that's where the pain comes from. There a lot of painful things that you experience when you go into the slave dungeons. You see a chapel right on top of a dungeon, and you feel that people were down here crying and screaming and, living in such a, not knowing what was going to happen to, but others were able to conduct a full church service upstairs.
My God.
So that's when we say, as human beings, we're not always all right, right?
Right.
We as human beings, we're all to blame if you think about it.
Wow.
It is sad, it's painful, but it's history. So it always must be explained properly. the journey of people talk about the slave trade along the coast, Cape Coast, Elmina. These are major cities, and even Accra as well, where they were slave castles. There are 65 forts.
Wow.
Originally.
Wow.
There are about 5 of them, or more than 5 of them, that are museums and UN, UNESCO sites.
Yeah.
So, and then, pristine condition. You can go there and you can really experience what went on there.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently, when I went to the Cape Coast Castle, and we were standing in one of the dungeons, the guide was explaining to me that, this feels like you're standing on solid ground, but the actual original tile is about 3 feet down or 4 feet down.
Oh my goodness.
You're just standing on whatever has become concrete, but was, human, whatever. So that's sad, but it's, you go there and you see it and then you understand the culture. It's it's like everything that is painful. I'm sure people go to the Holocaust museums and all that and feel that pain, and you're like, oh, why did people suffer like that? Why did people have to go through that? But then you see the brighter side to it, as in that you can tell the story and it's still there. So that is something that is encouraging. The slave trade did not only start along the coast. I mean, there was a slave market in northern Ghana, where people they would have brought people all the way from some of the inland countries, and then they would walk 3 weeks down to the coast, and they would go to the famous. I think that might be on the itinerary as well. The Slave River, where people were bathed, were fattened, were branded, and taken into the slave forts, where there was a door of no return, and and then shipped off to Brazil or to the Americas. Yeah. So it's sad, it's painful, it's you shed a tear, you cry more, but it's it's the truth, and it's I feel that as a world we don't tell that story enough, and we should, because it'll help prevent misunderstandings. Even in this present, it happened 500 years ago, 600 years ago, but it will definitely help heal wounds and make people feel a lot better. And I think it's important to tell that story. So I think it would be a good experience for us to go there and see that. And you see the influence of all the cultures in that area.
Yeah.
You got Dutch Accra, you got British Accra, you got all these different different countries that influence the coast. Yeah.
This is so amazing, and I'm so excited to go, and that's why we are having the conversation, right? That's why Sankofa exists, is for us to unpack this harmful history, not to bring shame to anyone, but I think the more that we talk about it, the more freedom we have. And as people of faith, God calls us to care about these things. God calls us to do justly,
That's correct.
to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. And so we do that by having these conversations, by coming together and realizing that we have so much to learn, but with God we can do it.
Yes.
And that's my hope.
Yes.
Leo, thank you so much for your time.
I'm always available for any more questions.
Of course.
Anything that I can assist with, I'll always be here.
Thank you so much, Leo.
Until we go.
Because Leo's going to be joining us on the trip to Ghana on January 20th to February 5th of 2027. If you are interested in joining us on this journey, please reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you. We're doing important God calling us. We're doing good work that God is calling us to. So I hope that you are willing to join us on this journey. Thank you so much for this episode of Perspectives. If you have any questions, please reach out. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is a production of First United Methodist Church of San Diego. To learn more about our events and ministries and to access additional learning resources, visit FUMCSD.org.